Well, we were all pretty young, and it was an entirely different time from now, I would say. And, you know, when you're that age, you don't fear anything. The fellows that they were preparing to go give their lives, but I didn't see anybody acting afraid or anything. They were just having a great time. And most of them stayed there several days because they needed to be equipped for where they were going, proper clothing and ammunition and all that. And that's, of course, part of what my husband did, was to make sure that they were outfitted properly. And they were given as much training as they could for the time they were there.
Did you ever go into the officers' club there?
Oh, yes, of course.
Can you describe anything about that?
Well, it was pretty elegant. They had wonderful music, you know, dance music, and
Were you aware of the shooting that happened there?
You know, that happened, Bobby, after we left. Thank gosh. That was a sad, sad thing. It was really, really sad. The building that I started in was on Philbin Street. It was the camp headquarters, and that I spent most of my time there. First, as I told you, in civilian personnel, and then military personnel. And then a few yards, a lot of the buildings weren't built at that time. They were still building. But the PX was there, as I said, and it was very well equipped. It had all kinds of things for the fellows to buy and send home if they wanted. But where I went to the film library, it must have been on Cypress, what's now Cypress Street, because it's the same street that Roar is on. It was on that side. And the Servicemen's Club, as I recall, was east of the headquarter building, and the Officers Club was in between. They had quite an extensive hospital that was west of Philbin, up against the hills. And it was a beautiful facility. In fact, before my husband left there, he had a tonsillectomy there. And it was very well equipped, and competent doctors and nurses.
Louise, did you ever see any of the famous Hollywood stars who appeared at Camp Anza?
Yes, I did. And the one that impressed me most was Dinah Shore. They had an outdoor stage. It was like a big old wagon, and all the fellows were no chairs, just standing. But she was singing, and she accepted all their requests, and that girl sang and sang until finally she could not sing another note. And I just thought it was very, very touching. The streets were paved. There weren't very many houses around. We had quite a large plot of land where my parents lived, and also across the street. And where the La Granada School is wasn't there. And it was just country, very country.
Now, when you were dating Woody, were you able to get off of the site and go out to Riverside, or did you have to meet him on camp?
No, being whatever job he had and his friend, they could come and go at will. But we just weren't allowed to talk.
What did you do in Riverside for fun?
Oh my goodness. Not much in Riverside. There was a nice a nice thing in Mission Inn that we'd go to. It was like it wasn't exactly a bar, but it was like a little nightclub. And it was very calm and nice. But mainly, we would go over to, I think, the Cucamonga area, where they have I think the restaurants are still there. The Sycamore Inn, we went there a lot. They had wonderful food, and they had a nice little dance floor. And then there was a place across the street, and I don't remember the name of that, but my mom was always so happy when we went there because they gave us so much food. I'd bring home a great big bunch of food, and she loved that because my parents didn't go out much, and they enjoyed that. One night we were going down what's now Mission Inn Boulevard, and guess what? We ran out of gas. And I said, "Some officers you are, you can't even keep gas in your car, and you're gonna go lead these men?" So money was pretty tight. The only reason my husband had money to take me out to those nice places was that he would play poker at the officers club, and he was pretty good at poker. And he would kind of rake in the money, and then we'd have a fancy date. But anyway, we had to take a cab home that night. I hope they had money for it. I guess they did. It was a long ride to my house. Not really, because he was very, by the time that we got involved, he didn't really want me going to the service club and stuff like that. So, but before that, yes, we interacted a lot. We would go to their dances, and they have wonderful music. They have professional people, from all different walks of life. And so they have wonderful music, and at the officers club too. But my husband, or my boyfriend at that time, he was a little bit possessive. When you have a girl and there's 1,000 men around, you can understand that. So he wasn't too anxious to go to the officers club with me, because somebody would come and ask me to dance, and I would, and he didn't care for that. Well, I don't remember it not being, but I wasn't out and about that much. I never heard of anybody saying don't sit on the grass and stuff like that. I think they were trying to be good hosts. I do. I know one man was very unhappy because of the way they treated the Italian prisoners, because they took his girlfriend and sent her to the camp, you know, the internment camp. But the Italian prisoners were allowed to go about if they had an escort. And as I recall, it had to be an officer. So that, you know, that was kind of strange. You know, I wasn't really aware of it, except that it did exist, and the black soldiers were in the reception center, and they had all their own facilities. They had their own club, they had their own mess hall and everything. So there was segregation, yes, definitely. Things were quite different then, you know. I think they did some of the sports, but I don't remember them being anybody in the group for the entertainment, but maybe that was separate. Maybe they had it over at the reception center for them. This lady that was in charge of it was the one that started it, and I can't remember her name. You probably know it. And as I recall, it really wasn't there very long. I don't know why. Evidently it was girls that were homeless, you know, or had problems at home or something, and this woman that had the town, I guess it was patterned after Boys Town, you know, that they have.